The storm never apologizes for sweeping away those who are unprepared. It does not pause to show mercy, nor does it bow to ask permission before tearing apart the roofs of souls still sleeping in their comfort zones. The storm comes, like a messenger of God, to wash away illusions and reveal the true strength of humanity. And you, the one who is listening, are one of the souls who have walked through that storm, not because you were strong enough to resist it, but because deep inside, you were destined to survive, to stand firm, to become proof of a truth the world will never understand. Those who are chosen must face the trials first. The world has not been kind to you. It saw the light in your eyes and tried to extinguish it. The people you once trusted, loved, and believed would walk with you until the end were the first to turn away. They smiled at you face to face, but behind your back were blades sharpened by envy. They knew your weaknesses because you once opened your heart to them. They knew how to hurt you because you once loved them. And when you fell, they thought they had won. But they forgot one thing: the sacred flame does not die in the rain. It learns to burn deeper, stronger within it. You once sat in that darkness, wondering why kindness became the reason for your pain, why honesty led to loneliness. But in that moment of confusion, the Creator was watching. Every chosen soul must walk through the corridor of betrayal, because only through betrayal can you learn where true faith belongs, not in people, but in God. And when you lose every worldly anchor, you discover the foundation that never collapses, your faith in Him. The words of Psalm 27:1 thunder in the night. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? That verse is not just comfort. It is confirmation that the light within you cannot be extinguished, because it comes from a source that cannot be shaken. People call betrayal the end, but in the eyes of the Almighty, it is a birth ritual. When everything you believed in falls apart, you begin to see who is real and who is only a shadow. When promises fade like smoke, you learn the language of silence. When every hand lets go, you learn to stand on your own feet. That is the beginning of the journey, not of a defeated soul, but of one refined to carry the light. The storm does not come to destroy you. It comes to shape you. It strips away everything false, so that what remains in you becomes pure and stronger than ever. And then, when the thunder fades, you begin to notice something strange. Your silence frightens them more than any reaction could. They want you angry. They want you to fight back. They want to see you fall into their game, because that is when they still have power over you. But when you choose silence, when you choose to walk away, when you choose not to fight, you become the mirror that terrifies them. In that reflection, they no longer see weakness. They see their own cowardice. That is the moment power shifts, when you no longer need to prove anything, and they can no longer forget your image, even in their sleep. The storm, in the end, destroys nothing. It only strips away what is false. It removes your shell to reveal your true soul, the part that the world cannot control. In the ashes, you hear a faint voice, not from outside, but from within. Rise. That voice carries no command, only affirmation. You are not finished, because the chosen ones are never meant to stop halfway. They may fall, they may cry, they may lose everything, but they are never defeated. You begin to walk, slowly, step by step, through the ruins. Each step is a declaration that you are still here. Each breath is proof of a strength they cannot comprehend. The world once tried to make you kneel, but you stood up. They wanted you silent, but your silence became an echo. They thought betrayal would destroy you, but it made you untouchable. Every pain you endured was never meaningless. It became the fuel that made your light blaze even stronger. When dawn returns, you see a new sky, clearer and wider, like a reflection of your own soul. You are no longer who you were. The wounds have healed, but instead of scars, they have turned into sacred memories, proof that you were tested and chosen. You realize you do not need revenge, because true justice moves in silence. You just need to keep walking and let God do the rest. From here, a new journey begins. A journey no longer led by pain, but by faith. A journey no longer asking, why did they do this to me? But, what am I being taught? You no longer look back for answers, because the past holds no power over you. Each time you close your eyes, you hear the wind whisper, you have been chosen. And in that whisper, your soul responds with peace. The storm is past. but its echo remains in the air, not as fear, but as a reminder. Because it was the storm that awakened you, it taught you that true light does not come from outside, but from the flame that is always burned within. The world may try to put it out, but the more it tries, the brighter it burns. Now you stand in stillness, beneath the sky that has survived the tempest, and you realize one certain truth: you have awakened. And when a chosen soul awakens, the world will never be the same again. They thought you would collapse. They believed that the knives of betrayal would make you shrink in bitterness or seek revenge to prove you still had strength. But what they never understood is that the chosen souls do not react the way the world expects. You did not get angry. You made no vows of vengeance. You simply gathered your energy, stepped out of the battlefield, and let silence do the work that words could never accomplish. That silence, which first appeared weak, slowly became an invisible sword that cut every tie between you and them. The moment you chose not to react, they began to lose control. Because true power does not lie in anger, but in where you choose to place your attention. When you withdraw your energy from their game, the board collapses. Those who are used to living through manipulation panic when no one responds. In silence, they begin to hear their own echoes, and that is the most terrifying sound of all. You do not need revenge. You only need to walk away. Your peace is a louder accusation than any battle. The world may call it coldness, but your soul knows it is justice. Because the justice of the Almighty does not arrive with hammer and fire, but with moments of awakening deep within the human heart. When you stop fighting, when you hand the battle back to God, justice begins to move. Every action has an echo. Every lie carries the seed of truth, and in time, your silent ally, everything will be revealed. You do not need to prove your innocence. You do not need to defend what your heart already knows. In the moment you lift your head and walk through the whispers, you are declaring that your faith does not rest in human justice, but in divine justice. A verse from Psalm 37:7 flows in the wind. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him to act. Those words are like cool water to a weary soul. You do not need to race against injustice. You only need to stand firm in faith, for every lie will eventually dissolve, like mist before the morning sun. You may not realize it, but your silence has already planted the seeds of their downfall. When you stop reacting, they lose the target for their blame. When you are no longer there to be controlled, they are forced to face themselves. At first, they justify. They create stories to soothe their guilt. I did it because they deserved it, because they were wrong, because they were weak. But every lie is just temporary medicine, covering the wound they created themselves. Then one night, in the stillness, when no noise remains outside, a quiet voice rises within, small but impossible to ignore. It asks, why did you do that? What did they truly do to you? And from that moment, repentance begins. You do not need to witness it. That is no longer your story. The truth is, you no longer belong to their energy field. You have left the old vibration behind, the one filled with pain, resistance, and struggle. You are now stepping into a new space, where light and faith are your compass. You do not answer hate with hate, because you understand that resentment is the most subtle form of bondage. When you forgive, you do not justify the wrong. You simply refuse to carry it any longer. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is the declaration of freedom. The peace you feel is not escape. It is strength forged in silence. You have learned the greatest lesson every chosen soul must learn. Not every battle needs your sword. Some wars are won not by fighting, but by laying down your weapon. Some enemies can only be defeated when you stop playing by their rules. That is what confuses them, because in the game of darkness, silence is the one thing they cannot understand or control. To them, the world is a place where power must be proven, where victory is the only way to earn respect, where fighting back is the only way not to be despised. But the soul of the chosen does not follow that law. You know that victory is not about conquering, but rising above. It is not about proving yourself right, but freeing yourself from the need to prove. And freedom, in every form, is what keeps them awake at night. When you are silent, they think you are weak. When you smile, they think you are pretending. When you live peacefully, they begin to doubt themselves. The emptiness inside them grows because they cannot understand why you did not break. And slowly, they start to see what they have lost, something they can never regain. Because it is not held in their hands, but in their hearts. It is the peace that only a chosen soul finds after walking out of the hell others created. The world remains the same, still full of deceit, new betrayals, and doubtful eyes watching you pass. But you are no longer caught in it. You look upon it with compassion, not contempt, because now you understand that every soul is fighting its own battle within. People hurt others only because they have not yet learned how to heal themselves. And when you understand that, you no longer feel the need to strike back. You simply hold your light. God's justice is never rushed. It does not arrive as thunder, but as dawn after a long night. Slowly, everything false fades away. You only need to keep your heart pure, because in the divine order of the universe, light never loses to darkness. It only waits for the right moment to shine. And you, chosen soul, are the living proof of that truth. So keep walking, without justification, without the need to be understood. Your silence is your most powerful prayer. It is not surrender. It is an act of absolute faith. When you hand the battle back to God, you are saying, I trust that you will do what is right. And He will. Because He always does. The storm has tested you, betrayal has taught you, and silence is leading you home. There is no need to hurry. Every step you take now is different, steady, calm, like someone who knows where they belong. Light does not need noise to shine. It only needs to be seen by those who are awake enough. You no longer live to be acknowledged, but to be present as you are. The one who was hurt but did not fall. The one who lost much, yet kept their light. And that is the true victory. In the moment you exhale in peace, you feel something sacred surrounding you, not pride, but deep serenity. You understand that everything that happened had meaning. No suffering was wasted. No betrayal was without a lesson. And if your soul can still hear that gentle call, then the journey continues. The journey of one who was chosen, who has learned to trust the justice of the Almighty, even when human eyes cannot yet see it. There are nights when you wake up in the middle of endless silence. No more tears, no more anger, only the cold emptiness in your chest. That is when your soul begins to realize that the war is over, not because you won, but because you refused to keep fighting. They wanted you to resist, to prove that they still mattered. But instead, you chose silence. And that silence is the sharpest blade that justice has ever given to the soul of a human being. No retaliation is needed. Simply by not participating, they fall into their own pit. The longer they wait for your fury, the more afraid they become when nothing comes. No one calls their name. No one repeats the old story. Only them, left alone with the echo of their own guilt. In the moment you withdraw from that game, you not only save yourself, but also cause the entire structure of their darkness to collapse. Every plan of manipulation, every trap built to provoke you, dissolves like smoke. They once thought they knew you, knew what made you angry, what could hurt you, when you would react. But this time, they can no longer grasp anything, because the person they betrayed no longer exists. That person died with the storm, and from the ashes, a new being was born, calmer, deeper, brighter. When you no longer need to prove anything, you become impossible to control. And in that moment, true power returns to your hands. From afar, the universe begins to shift. Every bit of energy you once sent out in pain now returns as strength. You no longer tremble at their name, no longer fear the past. Every memory that once hurt you now stands as a witness to your journey of faith. Because in silence, you finally heard what the noise of the world once drowned out, the voice of the Almighty. And He whispers, not in thunder, but in the gentle wind, do not seek revenge. Let me act. The verse from Romans 12:19 echoes again. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. Those words are not soft advice, but a sacred command. Because when you take justice into your own hands, you step out of His protection. But when you let go, when you hand the battle back to heaven, true justice begins to move. It is justice that needs no audience, no glory, only absolute trust. You begin to understand that forgiveness does not mean they deserve it. Forgiveness means you no longer wish to carry the weight of hatred another day. Hatred is the chain that drags the soul downward, binding it to the same frequency as those who cause the pain. When you forgive, you do not deny the past. You simply choose not to live in it anymore. And in that moment, your energy is released. Deep inside, You feel a door opening, leading you out of the dark room of suffering where you once imprisoned yourself. The world may not understand. They may call you weak, say you are avoiding the truth. But your soul knows silence is the strength of one who has been purified by the storm. No need to argue, no need to prove. You simply smile, because you already see what they cannot yet see, that truth will reveal itself at its own time. Truth does not need defenders, only time. And time always stands with the light. Now you walk in peace. Each morning, when sunlight passes through your window, you know you have won, not through power, but through your freedom from the need to win. Every step you take is an unspoken prayer. As you work, as you breathe, as you see the world with new eyes, you radiate a kind of energy that darkness cannot withstand. The energy of freedom. And in that freedom, every tie to the past fades away. Sometimes your soul recalls the number 111, the number you used to see at random moments, on clocks, on receipts, in dreams. Now you understand it was never a coincidence. 111 is the seal of a new beginning, the universe's confirmation that you are on the right path. When that number appears, it whispers that the old doors have closed and a new cycle has begun. If you have ever seen that number, if it touched your heart, it was not random. It was a calling from the light, reminding you that your journey has been witnessed by the Creator. And if not 111, maybe another number, 222, 333, or 777. Each number carries its own frequency, a language of the soul that words cannot express. When you feel called by a number, share it, not to boast, but to affirm with the universe that you are listening. That is how the chosen recognize one another amid the chaos of the world. When you learn to trust, miracles begin to appear. Quietly, gently, through small yet sacred changes, your mind becomes lighter, your sleep deeper. The old wounds no longer hurt the same. You start to notice signs of new life growing within you, and that is what makes those who betrayed you tremble, even if they do not understand why. Because they hoped you would hate, but you found peace. They hoped you would break, but you bloomed instead. In that new light, you realize that revenge is an illusion. Your silence is the deepest judgment of all. They will never admit it, but deep down, they know they have lost, not to you, but to themselves. And you no longer care about that ending. You only know that your soul is free. One afternoon, as you walk past a place filled with memories, you realize it no longer hurts. Everything feels distant, like an old dream. And in that moment, you know you have stepped completely out of the darkness. Nothing left to hold on to, nothing left to prove. You lift your head, feel the wind through your hair, and in that stillness, you smile. No words, no witnesses, only the knowing that you have believed. If you are hearing these words and feel a strange recognition in your heart, it is not by chance. Your soul is recognizing itself in this story. Leave a sign, a message, a small word, not for attention, but to affirm that you are here, walking alongside others who have also chosen the path of silence and light. Because like stars in the night, the chosen always find one another through their light, not their voices. And you, the soul that has walked through the storm, keep walking now, without looking back. Ahead of you, a new chapter is unfolding. The justice of God is never rushed, but it always arrives right on time. You only need to trust and keep the light alive in your heart. For in this very moment, as you choose peace over bitterness, you are performing the greatest miracle of all, turning your wounds into doors and walking through them as one who has been chosen. They begin to see their true faces in the mirror. No more enemies to blame, no more stories to justify, only the cold reflection of what they have done. In that mirror, they see the moment they struck the knife of betrayal, hear again the voice they used to deceive, and feel the emptiness slowly consuming their soul. Nothing terrifies a person more than the moment when truth leaves them no place to hide. They once believed that betraying you would make them stronger, that it would free them from the feeling of inferiority. But now, they are the prisoners, trapped within the prison of conscience they built themselves. And you, chosen soul, now walk in the morning light, carrying no hatred, needing no vindication. You no longer care who was right or wrong. In your heart, there is only one certainty. Justice needs no noise. With every passing day, you feel lighter, as if an invisible hand is untying each thread that once bound you. You do not know when it happened, but the pain that once clung to you has vanished. Peace has replaced resentment. And deep within, you know it did not come from your own effort, but from the power of the Creator. You remember the dark days when you cried out for answers, when you asked, "Why God?" Now you understand. He was not silent because He abandoned you, but because He was working in a realm your eyes could not yet see. Some lessons can only be understood after walking through them. Some wounds can only heal when you stop touching them. And in that stillness, you hear the words of John 8:32. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. That verse does not arrive as thunder, but as a gentle breeze brushing your heart. Truth never rushes. It only waits until you are calm enough to see it. People fear the truth because truth does not comfort. It does not hide or soothe. It only illuminates. And when that light shines into the darkest places, everything begins to change. You no longer wish to hide your scars, for now they are proof of survival. You no longer see yourself as a victim. You are the one who walked through fire and remained whole. When you look back, you do not see enemies anymore. You see harsh teachers, sent to teach you lessons of strength, faith, and freedom. They, the betrayers, now begin to feel the true consequences of their actions. Not punishment from the outside, but decay from within. Their minds have become prisons. Every dream is haunted by your image, not angry, but peaceful and calm. It is that peace that frightens them more than any curse, because nothing hurts more than watching the one they tried to destroy become radiant. There is no punishment harsher than realizing you no longer remember them, and you, while they are haunted by the past, are building your present. You begin to smile for real. Small things like sunlight, the smell of coffee, the sound of the wind through your window, all feel sacred because you once lost everything. Every peaceful moment now feels precious. You need no praise, no witness, yet you feel the presence of a power greater than yourself, gentle but unwavering, guiding your steps. You understand that when human hands release control, the hand of God begins to move. The world may call it karma, but you know it as the order of the universe. Not revenge, but balance. What they sowed has begun to sprout, not in your garden, but in their minds. Every lie becomes a rotting seed, slowly collapsing the world they built for themselves. Meanwhile, you stand outside, no longer angry, no longer triumphant, only compassionate. Because now you understand, no one can hurt you once you stop giving them that power. One afternoon, as the sun sinks behind the trees, you pause on a golden road. The wind brushes through your hair, and you feel it clearly in your heart. You are free. No invisible chain holds you in old stories. The past is now just a mirror, and in that mirror, you see yourself standing tall, at peace. When you forgive, you are not setting them free. You are freeing yourself from living forever in their shadow. From afar, they still watch, perhaps through curious eyes, through gossip, through restless attempts to know how you are. But you are unmoved. You no longer need to prove that you are fine. Your peace is no longer a state. It is your nature. It depends on no one, needs no approval. And that is a kind of power the world cannot take away. The world within you is now as still as a lake. Every wave has settled. You understand that truth has completed its work. No one needs to fall for you to rise. No one needs to suffer for you to find peace. For this peace is not a reward, but the result of faith. Faith that even in chaos, God is still working. Faith that every loss is His way of clearing the path for something greater to come. Now, as you look to the sky, you see yourself as part of something greater than any betrayal or pain. You no longer fear the past, for it no longer defines you. Every wound has become a doorway. Every sorrow has become a prayer. And in that moment, you hear what every chosen soul realizes in the end. That truth does not only free you from others, it frees you from yourself. You smile, not because you have won, but because you finally understand the meaning of freedom. Freedom is not being untouched, but knowing who hurt you and still being able to bless them. That is the strength of one who has walked through darkness and carries no shadow in their heart. For true light not only guides the path, it also forgives. And as you keep walking, that light walks with you. A gentle reminder that truth never needs to be defended. It only needs to be lived. Nothing hurts a betrayer more than seeing you live in peace. When their plans crumble and their lies lose meaning, they begin to realize the most painful truth of all, that they no longer hold a place in your mind. They once believed their betrayal would leave a permanent mark, that the pain they caused would bind you forever, that they would live in your memory like a scar that could never fade. But when you chose silence, when you stopped speaking their name, something they never expected happened. They disappeared from your story, and in that very moment, you were completely free. They begin to watch you quietly, not out of care, but obsession. They secretly follow what you do, waiting for you to fail, hoping to hear that you have fallen. But the more they look, the more they are consumed by confusion. Because instead of breaking, you are rising. You do not speak of the past. You do not justify. You do not blame. You simply move forward. And every step you take is an invisible strike against their pride. Every smile, every success, every moment of peace is proof that they were wrong about you. Completely wrong. You do not need to prove it. Your presence alone, quiet, radiant, unharmed, is enough. When a soul overcomes pain without bitterness, it carries a light that darkness cannot endure. You become the image they cannot escape, not because you cling to them, but because they cannot stop thinking about you. Your silence forces them to hear the echo of their own guilt. Each time they try to forget, your image returns, not as a wounded one, but as light shining into the darkness they tried to hide. The world keeps turning, but you no longer live on the level of struggle and revenge. You are learning to live lighter, simpler, more true. The light within you no longer burns like a wild flame in the storm, but glows steadily, guiding the way. You begin to see that joy does not come from winning against others, but from no longer needing to compare. Peace is no longer something to find. It is what you have become. When you accept that not everyone can understand you, you are free from the need to be understood. And in that freedom, your heart opens, not to welcome the old self, but to embrace the new one, purified by silence and faith. One morning, you see the number 222 on a license plate, on a clock, or a small receipt, and your heart stirs, not by coincidence, but because your soul recognizes something sacred. 222, the number of balance and harmony. It is a message from above that you are not alone, that everything is falling into place. Justice is not punishment for others, but restoration within you. When you see 222, it is a reminder that heaven and earth, within and without, light and shadow, are finding balance in your soul. You no longer need to try to appear okay. You truly are, because the universe stands with you. If this number speaks to you, let it become your sign. Share it, not to boast, but to acknowledge that you are being guided. For among the crowd, only awakened souls can hear the language of numbers. 222 is not just a pattern. It is the universe affirming that you are now aligned with your destiny, where every wound, betrayal, and loss becomes the material for your soul's growth. And while you regain your rhythm, they still struggle in the darkness of their own choices. Every time they hear your name, they flinch. Not because of what you did, but because they know you no longer think of them. They stir up noise, try to reappear, create stories to draw your attention, but you do not respond. You now exist on a higher plane of stillness, where every attempt to pull you down dissolves into nothing. You no longer hear their noise, not because you are deaf, but because you have changed frequency. Your silence, once mistaken for weakness, has become a symbol of power. It drives them restless because they cannot control it. While they spin inside their own web of regret and denial, you walk through the morning light, one step at a time, without looking back. As they seek attention, you seek peace. As they strive to prove, you simply are. Your quiet existence is living proof that divine justice always works, not through revenge, but through the survival and growth of the one who was once hurt. You understand that forgiveness does not diminish the value of what you endured. It transforms pain into pure energy, bringing you closer to your true essence. You are no longer the victim of the story, but the writer of a new chapter. And in that chapter, their names no longer appear. Each morning, when you see yourself in the mirror, you no longer see the tired eyes of someone who once fell, but the calm gaze of one who understands. The peace in your eyes reflects through the universe, spreading like ripples of light. In a quiet moment of meditation, you feel a sacred presence surround you, as if something vast is moving within the stillness. Not a sudden miracle, but a gentle certainty that everything is unfolding exactly as the Creator planned. And all you need to do is trust. Justice is not outer retribution, but inner restoration. When your heart is balanced, everything around you finds its right place. Now, when you look at the world, you no longer see enemies, only souls at different stages of learning. They hurt because they do not yet know how to love. They lie because they are not brave enough to be true. And when you understand that, your heart holds no resentment, only compassion. That compassion, free from pain, is the purest proof that you have become light. Darkness no longer follows you, because it only exists where there is resistance. You no longer resist. You simply breathe, walk, and exist. And in that existence, you are free. Free from the past, from others, from the need for recognition. You have found peace, and that peace is the final victory. In that quiet light, your soul whispers a prayer of gratitude. Thank you for teaching me that silence has its own voice, and peace is the justice of God. There is a quiet moment in your journey, the moment you realize that revenge is just another form of bondage. Every time you think of them, every time you imagine striking back, you unknowingly tie yourself to the same cycle of energy they live in. And then you stop. You stop completely. No more conversations in your head. No more words you want to say, but hold back. You understand that you do not need to defeat them. You only need to step out of the battle, and that alone is victory. In that moment, your soul feels lighter, as if someone has cut the rope that once pulled you into the depths. You step out carrying a silence that cannot be described, a strength that only those who have released the darkness can understand. They, the ones who once thought they could control your emotions, suddenly feel lost. They were used to seeing you react, predicting when you would be angry, hurt, or ready to fight back. But now, they face emptiness, a silence that terrifies them. They try to provoke you, to create stories, to pull you back into the old game, but you are no longer on the board. You have stepped away, and your absence destroys them faster than any retaliation ever could. In their world, everything exists only through reflection. When you no longer reflect them, they fade into their own void, and you, the chosen soul, are learning to breathe again, no longer with the breath of tension and fear, but with a slow, full rhythm. You feel your heartbeat, no longer filled with the sound of anxiety, but with the sound of freedom. For the first time in years, you feel safe even in silence. No one can hurt you anymore, because no one has the power to touch the center of your soul. You understand that you cannot control what others do, but you can choose how you respond. And you choose silence, not out of fear, but because you have seen the value of peace. One morning, as sunlight slips through the curtains, you hear a familiar voice within. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Those words do not come to comfort you, but as a gentle command. Be still, because in stillness you hear His voice. Know that He is God, because when you stop fighting, He begins to act. The words touch you like the first summer breeze, carrying a certainty that cannot be shaken. You no longer need a plan or strategy. You only need to stand still in faith, trusting that everything is being arranged perfectly. From that day on, you live differently. No more impulsive reactions. No more sleepless nights asking, why? Everything may look the same, but you are no longer the same within. When someone speaks ill of you, you stay silent. When someone doubts you, you smile. You realize you no longer need to defend anything, because truth does not need protection. It only needs to be lived. You become a mirror of stillness, and in that mirror, others begin to see themselves. Some are afraid, some are curious, some begin to learn, but you no longer care. You just keep walking with quiet gratitude. The peace you carry now does not come from the absence of storms, but from no longer fearing them. Storms may still come, people may still betray, but you have learned how to stand still in the wind without being moved. Each time a trial arrives, you no longer ask, why me? But, what do you want me to learn this time? That question changes everything, shifting your life from resentment to growth, from resistance to acceptance. And in acceptance, you find freedom. Those who once hurt you may still struggle in their world, where every action demands a reaction, where noise is mistaken for strength. But you have risen to another level. where stillness is your weapon and faith your shield. You are no longer pulled into meaningless battles. Whenever someone tries to drag you into conflict, you simply smile and step aside, like one who knows that no one can drag light into darkness unless the light allows it. You also begin to understand that forgiveness does not mean allowing them back into your life. Forgiveness simply means freeing yourself. There are people you forgive but never meet again. There are memories you let rest without revisiting. Forgiveness does not erase the past. It only stops it from controlling your present. And when you reach that point, something miraculous happens. Your heart begins to heal, not with drama or noise, but quietly, little by little, like a sprout breaking through the earth after winter. Divine justice does not need your eyes to see it unfold. It works silently, slowly, but surely. Every wrong will eventually lose its balance and fall. You do not need to see to believe, for belief is how you see. When you pause, take a deep breath, and hand every burden to Him. You become the freest person on earth. Because true freedom does not come from breaking outer chains, but from releasing the ones within your mind. Now you walk lighter than ever before. The noise behind you sounds like distant wind. You are no longer the one who fell, no longer the one seeking justice. You are the witness of God's righteousness, a justice that is always on time, always perfect, and always begins in silence. Each breath you take is a prayer. Each step you make is a declaration that true peace comes not from control, but from trust. And when the sun sinks below the horizon and the last light touches your eyes, you know you have learned the lesson of this chapter of life, that silence is not the end, but the beginning of every miracle. In that silence, you hear Him whisper, a message meant only for the chosen. Be still, for I am here. There are mornings when the first sunlight touches the ground, and you realize you are no longer who you once were. The fear has faded, the memories have softened, and inside you remains only a calm stillness, like a lake after the storm. Little by little, you understand that you overcame not through strength, but through faith. You no longer try to forget, because there is nothing left to forget. Everything that once caused you pain has become proof of your survival. You have walked through darkness without letting it cling to you. When you look back, there is no hatred, only gratitude, because betrayal was what taught you how to find God within yourself. Those who once hurt you are still there, in their old world. They talk about you, ask questions, waiting for a sign, a reaction, a response, but you no longer hear them, not because you have forgotten, but because you have risen to another level of awareness. You no longer vibrate at the same frequency. Their schemes, their sarcasm, their whispers can no longer touch you. You now live in a field of energy where peace is the only language, and each time they see you, they feel smaller, because they cannot understand how you still stand there, calm, untouched by the scars they once tried to leave. And then one day, they begin to see your success. Not loud, not boastful, but a quiet abundance that radiates from within. You no longer chase what is yours, because what belongs to you finds its way back. Doors open easily, as if the universe itself is returning what was lost. Everything you touch seems to shine. They see it, and the envy in their hearts turns into fear. Because they finally understand that this light cannot be bought, cannot be faked, cannot be stolen. It only comes to those who have walked through darkness without letting it change their heart. Your success is no longer revenge. It is proof that God never forgets. He saw every tear, every injustice, every word you could not speak. And now, instead of fire, He uses light to lift you up. Others may think you are lucky, but you know this is not luck. It is the righteousness of the one who keeps His promises. The words of Psalm 23:4 echo in your heart. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. You understand now that it is not just a prayer, but the truth of your life. Every step you take now has meaning. You no longer reach for what is beyond your grasp, because you trust the universe to lead the way. Everything arrives at the right time, not early, not late. You've learned to trust in divine timing. Instead of rushing, you wait patiently. Instead of resenting, you give thanks, because you know that no trial ever came to destroy you. Each one came to awaken you. You no longer need validation, for the peace within your heart has already become the answer. They, the ones who once plotted, have become strangers to themselves. They do not understand why you continue to rise, why you are still loved, why you smile even after all they did to bring you down. Your existence becomes a mirror. Each time they see you, they are forced to face what they have lost: their purity, their faith, their light. And in that reflection, they no longer see you, but the darkness within their own hearts. That is the most subtle punishment of all, for they are not condemned by you, but by their own awareness of the distance between two souls. You, on the other hand, do not seek to boast. You do not need to prove you have overcome. You simply live, and your life itself becomes the evidence. Your light makes others want to understand, to change, to step out of their own darkness. That is how you repay evil without harm, by living well, by becoming proof that light always wins. You do not need to speak, only to exist, and your presence, steady and peaceful, is a living prayer. In a moment of stillness, you feel the gentle reminder of the universe. The number 555 appears, maybe on a billboard, in a dream, or on a small receipt. You smile softly, because you know its meaning. 555, the number of divine transformation, of sacred change. It arrives to tell you that you are entering a deep metamorphosis, not just outwardly, but in your very essence. The old is falling away, so the new light can enter. And if you feel this number calling to you, share it, to affirm to yourself that you are ready for the great transformation the Almighty has prepared. Now, you no longer seek meaning in the pain, because you understand that pain was the key that opened the door to grace. Every crack in your heart that once hurt is now the place where light shines through. You no longer ask, "Why did they do this to me?" but, "Who does God want me to become through this?" That question changes everything. You are no longer defined by what happened, but shaped by what you have become. And in that transformation, you see clearly that everything that ever happened was never against you. It was sent to help you become yourself. They may still speak, still try to wound, but their words now echo faintly in the distance. You do not need to respond or defend. Light never argues with darkness. It simply shines. You understand that forgiveness is not an act, but a state of being. The state of a soul strong enough to no longer need to prove anything. And when you live in that state, the universe opens gently, clearly, like an old door falling from its hinges to reveal a bright sky beyond. You lift your eyes and see the sun leaning through the clouds. Its light falls upon you, not harsh, but warm and embracing. You hear his voice, not in words, but in feeling. "I have always been here." You answer with a quiet smile, the smile of one who finally understands. No more battles, no more resistance, only surrender, trust, and peace. And in that peace, you know, the journey of the chosen is never easy, but it is always worth it. Because through every loss, you have not only found the justice of God, but you have found yourself. Time, the quiet ally of faithful souls, begins to turn its wheel. Everything they once sent into the world now returns like a shifting wind. The lies they once spoke are now repeated back to them. The traps they once set for you have become the pits they fall into. No one needs to punish them, for the law of the universe runs itself, as precise as a heartbeat. You do not wish for their pain, you simply witness in silence. And in that silence, you feel something profound. That true justice never needs human hands. It comes like the morning light, slow, gentle, yet unstoppable. One morning, you step outside and sense the air is different. Everything feels lighter. The memories that once weighed on you dissolve like mist. You realize you no longer carry the energy of the past. You have cut every invisible string of attachment. Those who once hurt you are now only shadows fading in the distance. They hold no power over you anymore. Everything they did, said, or created now exists only in their own world. A world collapsing under the weight of its own deceit. And you walk forward in new light. Light as if reborn for the first time. This is the miracle of letting go. When you no longer crave retribution, that is when justice begins to move. No one can outrun the consequences of what they have created. Every negative energy returns to its source. As Scripture says, you reap what you sow. The universe does not err. God does not forget. And you, the one who chose silence instead of hatred, become living proof of this truth. Not by watching someone fall, but by feeling yourself rise. You do not count the wounds they will receive, because your heart has no room for that anymore. You see only one truth, that you are free. When you stop expecting justice from human hands, you rise above their game. From that higher place, everything becomes clear. Souls who cling to resentment repeat the same lessons over and over. But you, the one who has learned, are allowed to pass through the next door. No more suffering, only light. No more hatred, only compassion. Along this journey, a number begins to appear again and again, seemingly from nowhere. 555. You see it on your phone screen, your clock, a bus ticket, even in dreams. It does not come to frighten you, but to confirm that you are in the midst of a great transformation. 555 is the mark of divine change, the sign that you are shedding your old skin to be reborn. Everything that once frightened you was only the final test, and you have passed it. If this number has ever touched your heart, know it is no coincidence. It is the whisper of God, telling you that you are stepping into a new chapter of your life, where truth and freedom become one. You begin to see the world with new eyes. No longer victims and offenders, only souls learning their way back home. Those who betrayed you, you now understand, were instruments in the hand of the Creator. They were not sent to destroy you, but to awaken you. Without them, you would never have learned stillness. Without them, you would never have found faith. And now that the lesson is complete, you can look upon them with true compassion, not the pity of a victor, but the understanding of one who knows that we are all on our way back to the light. You remember the nights you once cried out for justice, and you smile, because now you know, justice does not come with thunder, but with flowers blooming after the rain. It arrives in the simplest things, a quiet morning, a deep sleep, a lightness in your heart when you think of the past and feel no pain. That is the reward. No one gives it, no one takes it. It belongs to you, the soul that has walked through fire and still carries light. You do not need to prove your worth, for God knew it long before the storm began. As the morning light rises, you whisper your gratitude, not because what happened was easy, but because it was necessary. Every betrayal, every loss, every wound was part of the sacred ritual of transformation. You no longer see them as mistakes, but as holy steps written by His hand. Just as metal becomes precious only after the fire, the soul shines only after its trials. And now, purified, you begin to reflect His light in your words, in your eyes, in every breath you take. They, the ones who once caused pain, are now learning their own lessons. Every failure they meet reminds them that every act returns to its source. And you no longer wait for them to fall. You look upon them with the mercy of one who understands. For those who sow storms must one day walk through them, and those who sow darkness must one day learn to live in the light they once feared. You are no longer part of their story. You have turned the page, stepping into a new chapter, where you are not the victim, but the witness of God's righteousness. On a quiet evening, you sit and watch the sky change colors. No pain is strong enough to disturb your heart anymore. You know you are free. And in the soft wind that brushes past, you hear a whisper, not a human voice, but the echo of life itself. You have done well. Keep going. You close your eyes, take a deep breath, and know you are completely released. No more darkness, no more old weight. Only light, peace, and a simple prayer floating like a cloud. Thank you for turning every ruin into a path that led me back to myself. Tonight, the sky feels deeper, and the silence carries a strange sound, not emptiness, but the sense that something unseen is moving. You can feel it, even if you cannot see it. A part of you knows with certainty, justice is completing its cycle. No warning, no declaration is needed. Every soul must face the outcome of the energy it once released. They, the ones who hurt you, now live in waiting, haunted by what has no name. No one punishes them. They do it to themselves, for the most merciless punishment is not pain, but the silence of a battle that never comes. They once thought you would fight back, that one day you would return with fire in your eyes. They waited for the knock on the door, for the confrontation, for the explosion they had prepared for, but nothing happened. Day after day, month after month, you remained peaceful, still living, still smiling. That calm unsettles them, because when the enemy no longer exists, the battle remains only in their mind. They wait for a storm that never comes, and that waiting becomes the storm itself. They hear the wind howl inside their thoughts, see images of the past, and every memory tightens around their hearts like a chain. Divine justice needs no human intervention. It is like an undercurrent beneath the sea, quiet, steady, unstoppable. They begin to see small things collapse around them, a relationship cracking, an opportunity slipping away, a door closing just as they thought they were safe. One by one, their lives begin to mirror the energy they once sent out. No one punishes them, the universe simply responds. You reap what you sow. The words of Galatians 6-7 echo like a distant bell. You do not need to demand justice, for it is already written into the fabric of creation. You do not look at them with satisfaction. You take no joy in their fall. Your soul has risen far above that frequency. Now you feel only the quiet of God's presence. Everything is unfolding perfectly, and you need do nothing. Each passing day feels lighter, as if the weight you carried for years is dissolving into air. You no longer need to see anyone pay. The peace within you is proof enough that justice has done its work. When the heart is healed, every battle becomes unnecessary. Strange, isn't it? How the world turns just to teach you one truth, that real revenge is not when others suffer, but when you no longer need them for your happiness. When you reach that place, every arrow aimed at you falls harmlessly to the ground. Nothing can wound you anymore, for you have stepped out of the game. You are living proof of the truth in Psalm 91-7. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. You are not only protected, you are set apart a witness to the power of peace. While they lie awake through the night, eyes wide in the dark, hearts pounding with fear of what has not yet happened, you sleep deeply. Your rest is pure, like water at its source. You do not count the days or question the timing. You know that what belongs to light stays with light, and what belongs to darkness will, sooner or later, return to where it came from. They will never understand why things fall apart around them, because they do not see that deceit itself was the seed of their ruin. You do not need to explain it. The universe will, quietly and with perfect precision. You once thought justice would come like thunder, but now you see it comes like breath. Not loud, not fierce, but as the gentle movement of what is right. You can feel the layers within you shifting. Everything is aligning who you were, who you are becoming, and the purpose you now carry. Nothing in the past was wasted. Every tear watered the seed of wisdom. Every betrayal became a doorway to understanding. You no longer feel resentment, only gratitude. One day, you notice the number 777 on a receipt, in a dream, or on the clock at a perfect moment. You smile, because you know what it means. 777, the number of awakening, of divine wisdom known only to those who have walked through darkness. It appears to tell you that your healing is complete, and your soul is entering union with a higher light. Every confusion, every question, every pain is being resolved in understanding. If you feel this number calling to you, let it mark your path, a sign to the universe that you have heard your calling. You no longer wish for things to come sooner, nor fear they might come too late. You simply know that everything is right on time. Each morning you give thanks for how far you've come, for keeping a soft heart in a hard world. You do not wish for anyone's suffering. You only wish that all may awaken, as you did, because you now understand, awakening is not victory. It is freedom. Freedom from the need to retaliate, from the hunger to be recognized, from the chains of resentment and pride. The night fades, and the first light cuts across the horizon. You know a chapter is closing, but there is no sadness, only gratitude. You no longer need to look back. Behind you lies darkness that has been erased. Ahead of you stretches infinite light. You close your eyes and whisper your final prayer. Lord, I do not ask for justice upon others. I ask for mercy for us all. And in that moment, you know the journey of the chosen has reached its sacred completion, from justice to forgiveness, from wounds to light. The dawn has finally come. No more thunder, no trace of the storm that once raged in your heart. Everything is quiet now, as if heaven and earth are holding their breath before a new beginning. The light slips through the clouds, touching your face not harsh, but warm, like a blessing. And you understand, this is not the end of the journey, but its fulfillment. The journey of the chosen never truly ends. It transforms, from pain into wisdom, from storm into peace. You have not only survived, you have been reborn. Those who once hurt you no longer exist in your thoughts. Not because you forced yourself to forget, but because they no longer belong in the world you live in. Your world is changed, calmer, brighter, wider. You no longer hear the noise of the past, nor feel the need to be understood or believed. You simply are. Peace is no longer a destination. It has become your nature. And in that stillness, you hear a voice as soft as the breath of wind. You have done well. You understand that justice never comes to take revenge, but to restore the order of the soul. When you choose faith over resentment, silence over battle, light over darkness, you have done your part in the divine plan. The words of Psalm 37:4 echo within you, like the heartbeat of eternity. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. And you realize what you truly desired was never victory, but peace, not fairness, but freedom. And now you have both. When you look around, you see other souls walking the same path you once walked. They are hurting, lost, and fighting with themselves. In their eyes, you see who you used to be, and you do not judge. You simply smile, because you know they too are being refined, just as you were. They will lose, they will cry, they will break, and one day, they will stand where you are now, in the radiant light of awareness, and understand that every loss was a beginning. You gently raise your hand to the sky, not to ask, but to thank. Thank God for leading you through the darkest nights, for turning pain into wings. Thank Him for showing you the beauty hidden in destruction, the light concealed in the dark. And you understand that even those who hurt you have done their part in His plan. Without them, you would never have become who you are today, steady, wise, and full of love. Forgiveness, after all, is not to set them free, but to let yourself fly. Now, when you speak to others, your voice is calm, your eyes serene. You no longer speak of the past as a wound, but as a testimony. Every story you tell, every word you share, carries healing energy. You do not need to convince anyone of God's justice. Your very presence is proof. Those who hear you, even once, feel something stir within them, a small light, but enough to remind them that hope is still alive. And then, you understand, the chosen are not sent to seek revenge, but to lead. Not to prove they were right, but to become light for those still lost in the dark. You were chosen not because you are perfect, but because you had the courage to endure, to believe, to keep going when everything fell apart. Light does not choose unbroken souls. It chooses those who have shattered, so that when they are made whole again, they know how to shine from their cracks. Perhaps one day, those who hurt you will awaken. They will remember you, not with guilt, but with gratitude. Because it was your silence and your forgiveness that opened the door for their souls to return. And when that happens, you will smile, not because they finally understood, but because the light has finally won. As evening falls, you watch the sun bow at the horizon. Everything glows with a warm golden hue, the color of endings and beginnings. You close your eyes, feel the wind through your hair, hear the breath of the world, and whisper, "I am ready." Not ready for battle, but for a new journey, a journey of love and guidance. For you are no longer the one who was hurt. You are the one who was sent. If, as you listen, your soul feels something stir deep within, leave the number that resonates with you most. 111 for new beginnings, 222 for balance, or 777 for awakening. Not as a ritual, but as a declaration that you too are stepping into the light. For when the chosen souls rise together, the world begins to change not by the sword, but by gentleness. And then, in the final breath of twilight, you hear a whisper not of this world. You have been chosen not to avenge, but to remind the world that my justice is love. You open your eyes and look at the glowing sky. No more questions, no more fear. Only gratitude, deep and pure. And in that moment, you understand that your journey is complete. Not because you reach the end, but because you have become the path itself. Grateful that you chose to spend these moments in the light of this story. If it touched your soul, please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell so the next whisper of light may find its way back to you.